Hello and welcome to the Phoenix Phenomenon. I'm your host, ghostwriter and writing mentor, Roxanne McCarty-O'Kane. Thank you for joining us for another episode where we delve into the transformative process of becoming an author and talk to the game changers who know this journey all too well. Today, I have with me the lovely Monica Murray, who recently graduated from the University of the Sunshine Coast with a Master's in Education. She's extremely passionate about youth empowerment and fostered a love of creative writing from a very young age. Monica was quick off the mark to use the first Queensland COVID lockdowns of 2020 to create and launch the Isolation 100 for Kids, which is changing lives around the world. Now, I don't want to give away too much of the story because she tells it so well herself, so I'd love to welcome Monica to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Now, what I really love about your story and how your book came to be is how the inspiration kind of struck out of nowhere. So I'd really love for you to share, I guess, the creation, the planting of the seed of your amazing children's book.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to share my story because I think it's one that resonates with quite a few people, at least the beginning part, where in early 2020, we were getting messages from every direction saying that we needed to stay home because the world was in a pretty difficult place, very uncertain times. And there I was in a country very far from my home country, far from my parents, my family, my friends, living as an international student and working as a live-in nanny to a family while I studied my master's in teaching.
Mm.
Um, Looking after kids and educating them is something very, very close to my heart. So I was busy following my dream of becoming a primary school teacher. Um, and I just lay there at night one day, just worried about my family back home and about what was going to happen in my life, and also sort of kids around the world getting bored in isolation and how parents were dealing with that, seeing the people that I know in my life that are parents. And then it all sort of came together where I'd been scrolling through social media that day, and I know I'm sure we all were just going, where can we get more information about what's going on and when is the world going to go back to normal? And I saw one post on social media that was particularly inspiring that said, use this time of lockdown to do something that you've always wanted to do but never had the chance. And my brain immediately went, children's book. And suddenly, out of nowhere, the ideas started coming to me. And the first line of the book, that wasn't edited at all, and is still there, that says, oh gosh, it's gone out of my head. Just because you're on your own, it doesn't mean that you're alone. And I just wanted that to really hit home for everyone, and especially like a message to myself as well, to say we're all in this together despite not being able to get together. And then the next line came to me, and the next line after that. And weirdly, the book just started writing itself in my head. And by the fourth line, I thought, right, I think I've got something. I turned on my bedroom light. I took out the little notebook that I used to record notes at university, and I just started scribbling it away at the back. And then I thought to myself, hang on, these are all pretty great ideas that all sort of came to me in rhyme. And I thought, oh, that one needs to rhyme with that one. And I started writing one after the other, and I thought, well, I think I can push myself a little bit harder here. How many can we get to? And I said, well, why don't I'll stop at 100. And I guess thus was born the Isolation 100 for Kids. 100 ideas for kids to do in isolation, and I dare say adults as well. These are just fun, original, quirky ideas that you can do in the comfort and safety of home that I also very much wanted to make accessible for all. So I didn't want to say like, pull out a piece of technology that's really expensive with some nuanced computer game that, is not accessible to people in third world countries who'd be in lockdown, that wouldn't be able to afford it. No, these are ideas that I'd like to hope for the most part are extremely accessible, doable, and fun for kids and families around the world, regardless of where they are and what they're doing. So yeah, it just came to me. It was the best thing ever. It was a dream that I've had for a very, very long time. I used to write books. I used to attempt writing books when I was younger. And I would sort of go at it for a few days or a few weeks at a time. And then I would either hide it in a place that I would never find it again, or very discreetly scrunch it up and say, no one must ever read this. It is so bad.
What style of books were you writing at the time? Was it like a fiction novel or?
Yes, I have one that this one still exists. It was about a secret agent. That's like a teenage girl's secret agent that I very much saw being made into a movie. That one I actually still have a bit of hope for. And then I tried my hand at a few children's books, but the books were very much, they sort of, I wanted to have like an agenda behind each book. So I remember quite a lot of the time it was about like saving the environment, and it would be all about the sea getting polluted and people having to like team up and save it, but it just sort of pushed it in a way that was too hard and fast and felt too forced. And then I felt like I was giving myself a very like strange and uncompletable project. But with the Isolation 100 for Kids, I just thought, well, here's 100 random ideas and I can make them rhyme. And, it's up to the reader whether they want to take them on board or not. And at the end of the day, you don't even have to do them. You can just enjoy reading the book as a sort of Dr. Seuss rhyming style bedtime story.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it too. It's not like, this is the to-do list, you have to tick them off. It is actually really enjoyable to actually sit there and read it and just enjoy the flow of the words and the rhythm and the timing. Now, what I love about your story is that it literally just landed pretty much in one hit, and you may have had to tweak a few of the 100 to rhyme with each other. But I mean, that's incredible to have that splash of inspiration in amongst everything else. Like, obviously you were able to clear your mind enough, would you say, to let that land?
Yes, absolutely. And at first it was just like a bolt out of the blue that just came to me, and I thought, I've got it, I'm onto something great. And it was just sort of fun to write it for myself. And I thought, hey, I could, it didn't like come to me exactly as a book. I was like, oh, I could just read this to, what's her name's kids, just to give them a laugh. Or yeah, and I thought, no, write 100 and make a book of it. And yeah, I was really lucky. But then also clearing my mind and giving myself a project absolutely saved me from a real bad mental health situation that I'm sure a lot of people went through, where I felt like I'd given myself more of a purpose, a passion project, something very different to worry about than my job security, completing my university work, worrying about my family overseas. This was just my little thing that I could completely zone out of everything else and sort of do as a project and have some fun with it at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you tell me, because a lot of people have these amazing hits of inspiration, but then they stop, like they don't actually follow through and publish it or share it with anyone. So tell me, what was your mindset around that? Were you like, well, it's here now, it just needs to come out?
Honestly, I did get pretty excited about it because I thought, it was like otherworldly inspiration where I thought, oh, I can't believe I think I've done something kind of good here, but I'll have to get confirmation from a few people around me. So I went to my boss at the time, and she said, this is worth putting out into the world. Monica, you're actually onto something really good.
Yeah.
And that's when she introduced me to you. So we have that person in common. And I have a lot of gratitude that she was able to put me in contact with you, and we could work together to get the ball rolling and to get it out into the world.
Yeah, no, that it was really great. I was so excited to hear from you. But and what I still really remember about that first session, I think,
Yeah.
when we caught up was you offered to read the book to me. And I went, okay, no, that's great. And my two kids were at home. So I had a 8-year-old, eight, they would have been 8 and 6 at the time. And they just came out and there was no illustrations. There was nothing for them to look at. They just sat on my lap and watched you pretty much as we are now on the video on Zoom, and just listen to you read, and they absolutely were so engaged, and I don't think they so much as moved a muscle the whole time you were reading. They were just so captivated by it all, and it was just so magical to see that, and the look on your face when you were finished as well, when you were like, oh my gosh, like you could see that they loved it,
Yeah.
and how rewarding that was. So that's when I knew you were so passionate about bringing this out, and it was just beautiful to watch. So
Yeah, the fact that they loved it, that just confirmed it for me. I was like, if these two kids can enjoy it, and there's not even pictures at this point in
mm.
then I'm really onto something. And I was so lucky. I got to read it to quite a few children in the last year, where I did my teaching pracs at two different schools in Queensland. And, went and asked the supervising teachers, could I read my book to the kids? Um, and it's been very, very, very well taken up by them. Very well indeed. And that for me just confirms it and means, dare I say, even more to me than any adult's opinion.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, they're your target
Yeah,
market, right? They're your
yeah.
ideal
And you
readers.
need adults to help you, through the publishing process and essentially buy the book. But the kids that sit there going, oh, I do that. Oh, I do that with mom and dad. Or, oh, I do that when I go to my grand's house. And that really resonates with them. And some kids, especially like in year 2 and 3 in Queensland schools, when they start, it sort of matches with the curriculum, and they start to study things like narratives and rhythm and rhyme, and you get kids going, hey, that's written in rhyme, I know this because that word rhymes with that word and that word rhymes with that word, and you go, oh yes, you've got it.
That's right. Excellent. So, as you know, as we've mentioned, and unfortunately we can't show anyone who's listening to this on the podcast, but so you have to go check it out and buy a copy, just as a side note. But you have some absolutely beautiful illustrations in there. And so, for any authors who may have a children's book and they are just scratching their head going, I can't draw. How do I get someone to illustrate this for me? Can you share a bit about your process and how you managed to lock in the amazing artists that work with you?
Oh, absolutely. So I actually come from a background in graphic design and art direction, where I studied communication design, which is sort of a marriage between copywriting, advertising, and graphic design. And then worked in the industry for 2 years, and that also like brings my entire passion together for education, writing, copywriting, art direction, and advertising into this book. And I knew the exact style, being a former art director, the exact
Mm,
style that I wanted my work represented in. Um, and with the 2 years of experience and the sort of skills base that I have in illustration, I knew that it would just be a notch above what I'd be able to come up with on my own. And I did have a few cracks at drawing what I wanted to see, but it wasn't anything that I could pull together in the time that I wanted to publish, which was during lockdown. So the book that would be, the most relevant.
mm,
So I went online, and obviously being an international student and with the very limited budget that I had to actually hire someone, I interviewed around and found someone who could work with me, a lovely, lovely guy called Ilkom, and we were able to work together virtually overseas. for a while, and I was able to give him sort of time frames, and then also my own fairly detailed sketches of what I'd like him to use his particular style to bring to life.
Yeah, excellent. And is there a name for that particular style? Is it, I'm an
Yeah.
outsider with these kinds of things.
Well, I reckon you might call it something along the line of overall it's illustration. Potentially, if you were to use keywords, I would use words like digital art, sort of almost like animation, but still life animation perhaps, where it's not drawing or painting. I'm sure you'd use programs like both Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator to bring that kind of style to life, where you add sort of 3D aspects and the shading, but then also to make the kids look slightly caricatured, to just like enhance various aspects and enhance. One of the biggest things that I had, the instruction that I repeated over and over, that he understood, but I said over and over, all these kids need to look like they're having fun, because essentially this book is designed to bring joy to families and to young children during such an uncertain period in our time, during such a stressful and sometimes really horrible period in our human existence that's just been COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I loved about your book as well is that, and I know you were conscious of it as well, is that, you wanted to get this around the world. So the illustrations had to reflect that. You've got,
Absolutely.
children in there from every culture, and
Absolutely.
yeah. So you were thinking big right from the outset, which I
Right
love.
from the outset, and I'm really, really grateful to the incredible people that I worked with in the advertising industry. I was lucky to land a job straight out of uni in South Africa for a very, very fantastic, admirable advertising agency. And just before we went into the last stage of publishing, I consulted with the two head creative directors called Jacques Ross and Dave Everson, and they were able to provide a little bit more insight and a little bit more advice, particularly about the introduction, which is a little tailored a little bit more towards adults, about why I wrote the book. And their direction and advice to me over the 2 years that I worked in industry was absolutely invaluable. So I owe a lot of my creativity and thought process and sort of big ideas to them.
Excellent. No, that's great. And so, for those who aren't familiar with the Isolation 100 for Kids just yet, I'm sure you will be very shortly. You decided to release it in ebook form. Once again, was the motivation behind that just to get it out into the world as quickly as possible and around, like anyone can access it anywhere?
Absolutely. That's exactly why I published it the way that I did. Also, being an international student, there would be quite a big budget involved from what I believe in doing a big print run. So ebook also very much to keep people safe. And it's called the Isolation 100 for Kids. I want kids and families to be able to access it in isolation and not have to venture out into wherever they're living to get to go buy a book, of all things. I understand my position in this is providing a luxury at a time where we all know what the grocery stores look like and what human needs are. So very much a sort of stay at home, read at home, do at home book.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on this earlier about being really conscious about, not having to have certain materials. And I remember early in lockdown, you couldn't even buy poster paints. Like everyone was sold out of paints and everyone was sold out of all the craft supplies. But reading through your books, it was just about, different games you can play, different things you can look for, ways that you can interact with the people in your household. And I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. Like we're not needing to set up a whole table full of stuff in order to do it. It's just, pick it up and off you go.
Amen. Amen. And having fun with that. And also like bringing families together through doing things like building cubby houses, you know, and making household chores fun as well. Getting
Mm.
kids involved with helping parents, parents involved with helping kids, making, as you say, making use of things that we have in the house, just lying around. Like I'll quote a line from the book that I remember writing, which is, "Make small houses for small dolls using empty toilet rolls."
Yes. I can't remember, was the toilet paper thing happening by then?
Absolutely, yes.
It was, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, the peak of it.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, excellent. And of course, you know, when you're bringing the family together for these kinds of fun activities, it's not only just about giving the kids some joy and some distraction from everything. It's also works just as equally for the grown-ups as well, doesn't it? Because, you know, as you mentioned, it can be quite a challenging mental health situation to be in lockdown, and to be able to, you know, even take 10-15 minutes out and read this book and have a bit of fun and laughter with the kids, like that would just turn around your entire mindset for at least you know, at least 24 hours,
Yeah.
and just give you, you know, I guess bring you back to self and back to the fact that you are safe, you're there with your family, you've got some incredible people to enjoy your time with.
Absolutely. Oh, you say it better than I do. I mean, it's about as well being present. All those activities are about being present and being in the moment with your children, with the people that you love. Yeah, I mean, a lot of like writing it as well made me miss my family so much.
Mm.
And brought me back to my childhood as well, which is the reason that I dedicated it to my sister, because so many of those activities were inspired by things that we used to do in our childhood.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. And how did she feel having that dedication? What was her reaction?
Oh, she kind of went all silent on the phone. And my mom sort of tried to explain her expression as like being quite taken aback. And I said, well, of course I dedicated it to you. She's my best friend and my sister, and I love her so much. And I just can't wait for a time and a place where we can get together again. Really
Yeah.
and truly, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, we're all crossing fingers that, you know, families like yours won't have to wait for too long to be able to catch up again and have those special hugs. And yeah, no, my heart really goes out to you and everyone else who's separated from their family, because
Yeah,
yeah,
thank you,
it's
for sure.
not amazing times at the moment.
No.
Yeah. So obviously, did you give your sister a sneak peek before it was officially released, or did
Oh,
she
yes.
get to see it with everyone
Oh,
else?
fully, yeah, she fully got the inside story, and she was part of, you know, my inspiration and my motivation along the way as well. Where there were, I mean, we churned it out in such a quick amount of time, which is fantastic.
Mm.
But there were a few hurdles along the way, and it was her that I was on the phone to saying, "Oh, well, what should I do about this? Should I wait, and should I sort of fixate on these tiny little issues and try brush them out, or should I sort of power through, fix them as best I can, and you know, get this on the road?" And then it was sort of yeah, the day that it was that we launched it, my family was obviously asleep at the time because of the time difference, so I was able to share the great news with them that evening, which was their morning, which is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of your launch was getting in front of it was a daycare class, wasn't it? Was
Yeah,
it kindy? Yeah.
yeah,
And getting the chance to read to a fresh audience and, you know, live. And one thing I love about kids is that, you know, that it's no holds barred with them. They'll tell you
yeah.
exactly what they think. And but you had a really amazing reception once again. So that was pretty special.
Yeah, oh, that was such a fun day, and absolutely kudos to that kindy for really working hard to allow us the gift of being able to launch it there,
Mm.
um, with all the safety precautions in place. They really enabled us to make such a success of it. We obviously sanitized as we went in, we kept socially distanced, which is it's a little bit of an odd paradigm, and they sort of lined the kids up 1.5 meters apart as best they could on the carpet, and allowed me to deliver it there anyway. But seeing their faces and reading it to them and seeing them all engaged really, really made it worth it.
Absolutely. And how's the feedback been now that it's probably has done a couple of laps of the world by now in the last 12 months? So what sort of feedback do you get from people who have read a copy?
Oh, just nothing but positive reports. I mean, I'll be really honest with you, like, it's been fantastic. I just wish I could bring it to more people and more kids. Like my favorite thing is just doing a live reading and looking at the faces of children and doing it. So I think I've chosen a very, very good profession that will allow me to do that for a very long time. And yeah, I mean, I read it to some beautiful kids in far north Queensland on my last teaching prac. And it was fantastic. I mean, you know, from southeast Queensland to far north Queensland, in different parts of the world, geographically speaking, that would almost be countries apart. You know, they always say, like, if you place the map of Australia on top of, for example, a layout of Europe, you'd be in a different country if you were traveling up Queensland. So to have that spread and that distance and different kinds of people leading different kinds of lives, but have those kids relate to it as well and enjoy listening to it and also interpret it slightly differently. Like, I got a few different kinds of questions when I read it to them, but it was absolutely wonderful just to be able to have that opportunity and see how they enjoyed it as well. So yeah.
Excellent. No, it's I love how your whole face just lights up as you talk about sharing it with the kids. It's just so beautiful. So obviously the name of the show is the Phoenix Phenomenon, and I've named it that because the process of becoming an author is quite transformative, and that can be in different ways for different people. Now, I know for you, you know, this was almost a childhood dream to be able to release a children's book, but I'd love to find out if there were any other things that you learnt about yourself through the process of creating and releasing your book.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like life gives us these lessons over and over until they really hit home. And you can listen to all the inspirational talks you want to listen to, and all the inspirational YouTube videos and messages from your friends and family around you, always saying, you can do anything, you can do anything, you can do anything you put your mind to. And you sort of say, oh, yes, well, I maybe. And for me, writing this book really confirmed it. So that's the kind of advice that I give to anyone wanting to do anything, whether it's write a book, whether it's, you know, go skydiving, something that you really don't think you can do, just to make a start of it, and you'll surprise yourself, proving to yourself that you can do anything. So for me, that was extremely empowering at a time in human history where our options were being increasingly limited.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. No, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Now, for those of you who are listening, watching, and you've really connected with the idea of the isolation kids, oh, what is it? Sorry.
Isolation 100 for kids.
Thank you. The Isolation 100 for Kids. And not only would like to get a copy, but maybe even contact Monica to see if she might be available to do a bit of a reading for your classroom, or who would you ideally like to reach out to for
For
readings of the
anyone,
book?
anyone, and especially at these times, I know a lot of places all around the world are going into lockdown. So, you know, especially, you know, parents who are struggling with kids that and want something new to entertain them, to teachers or daycares or schools, anyone where you just want something different to entertain the kids or to inspire them with 100 ideas for what you could potentially incorporate into the classroom or for kids to do at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And how can people get a hold of your magnificent book?
So it's available as an ebook on Amazon. So all you do is type in Isolation 100 for Kids, or you can type in my name, which is Monica Murray, Monica, surname Murray, and it should still come up.
Yeah, perfect. Like, how incredible. And you know, even with Australia popping in and out of lockdowns now, and various countries being in various states of lockdown as well, this is a book that can absolutely really connect with families all around the world, and I know my two kids got a lot of enjoyment out of it. It was a lot of fun. Admittedly, we haven't done all 100 activities,
All
but
right.
I'm sure we'll chip away at it. But yeah, I can't recommend it highly enough, because I know just how important it is to have fun, and and I'm always a bit of a sucker for a children's book that rhymes. So kudos to you for being able to do that. So
Oh, thank you
you've
so
done very well. So thank you so much for joining us for another episode. And thank you also, Monica, for your time tonight. It's been really, really amazing to chat to you.
Such a pleasure, such a great time chatting to you too, and really, really wonderful to see you and hear your voice again after so long.
Yeah, that's right. Power of technology. It's great.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Thank you.
you're welcome.